DNA samples of 2104, which was the metal that was part of a bullet, or believed to be part of a bullet, right?
That's correct.
Those swabs. And then you took a DNA sample from the bullet that was 2078, right?
Yes, I took swabbings of both of those items.
And the bullet that was 2078 was significantly different in appearance, right?
That's correct.
And, oh heck. Sorry, Your Honor.
No problem.
Uh, huh?
The physical exhibit?
Yes. Okay, June 15, you get a couple of casings.
The report dated June 15th did include casings, yes.
Okay, actually, you probably got the casings before on this one, but the report was June 15, right?
Yes,
And their exhibit numbers were 2589 and 2590, right?
yes, that's in the exhibit numbers. There are more there, but
More of the things that you tested, but those are the exhibit numbers of the casings, or two of the casings that you tested.
they're just longer exhibit numbers that I have listed, but
Sorry.
within
yes.
that, yes,
The middle four numbers were that.
correct.
Okay. And those casings, and again, those middle four numbers were 2589 and 2590.
Correct.
And they appear on this chart, those numbers appear on the north side of that circle in the number 1.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, those casings were actually in Jill Terrio's office or workstation when you went to do the swabs, right?
That's correct.
And Jill Terrio was going to do the ballistics, right?
I believe so.
And that's something that we talked about before, that there is an order of things to do in testing an item, right?
Yes, that's correct.
For instance, fingerprints. You would not want to have somebody test for fingerprints and add the chemical glue thing that pulls up fingerprints before you've done the DNA testing, right?
Yes,
And so that was followed here too, that anything that was to be fingerprinted, you DNA tested first.
yes. Generally, we would always try to get a DNA sample prior to any other type of handling.
Okay, and even though these casings had been brought to Jill Terrio's workstation for her testing, you go before she has started manipulating anything to do the DNA testing, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so we talked about the bullet. Now, the next report that you did, what was that dated? After the pistol?
So we're going chronologically.
Yeah. October 14 also, 2022. Does that sound right?
So I have two reports dated October 14th, one with several items, and the second one has the Glock pistol in the backpack.
That we've already talked about, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what was it that you tested on that second report of October 14?
The one we haven't discussed.
Uh-huh.
Would you like me to read you the exhibits?
Just generally.
The items were a sock, or two socks, a t-shirt, a section of fabric, a coffee mug, a Mountain Dew bottle, several cartridge casings, a metal chunk, and 2 bullets.
Okay. So now, let's try and figure out some of these items and where they were from. The cartridge casings, you have a series in a row of 4367, 4369, 4370, 4371, 4372, 4373, 4374, 4375, and 4376. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you have a little bit extra here, but do you see those similar? I am holding up, Your Honor, Defendant's Exhibit 1163. Do you see those exhibit numbers, the middle four numbers, anywhere on this chart?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and am I pointing to a circle that seems to go from those exhibit numbers to a particular circle on the chart?
Yes, looks like the lower circle.
Okay, and so it indicates that by those numbers, shell casing 825, right?
Yes.
Okay, if I may publish, Your Honor?
Of course.
So I understand that you were not present for the preparation of this chart, but you did understand that some stuff, there were sort of two different scenes that were talked about in this case?
There were at least two, yeah. There were a couple different locations where some evidence had been recovered from burn areas as well as in the general vicinity of where the deceased bodies were.
And you said that somewhere in the chart, not necessarily your notes, there were charts or maps of stuff?
Yes.
Okay. So the metal chunk, 4524, and the two bullets, 4544 and 4545. I am going to show you the map that is Exhibit 1162, chart, I guess. And ask you, again, just the middle four numbers. Do you see those numbers, exhibit numbers on this chart anywhere?
I believe right here.
Okay. Am I pointing to a circle that is where you were just pointing to?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
Point out one other thing on that area. It says 830 and 831 in reference to those three exhibits, right?
That is correct.
And again, while you called it a metal chunk, it was a bullet, right? Or it
Possibly.
was
It was suspected to be one, yes.
believed to be a bullet, okay. And we there were several other items that you tested. Do you determine what items of evidence should be tested?
Not really directly. So generally, and especially in a case where there's a large number of evidence submissions, we go through a process of working with, whether it be the attorneys or the police agencies involved, and assessing what evidence is going to be submitted, and then coming to a lesser number based on whether evidence is appropriate and if anything probative can be established from it. And then also in cases like this, there's generally the involvement of what's called a major case coordinator.
Okay, so not necessarily you, but there might be conversation back and forth between the police department and the major case coordinator, and even potentially the prosecutor.
That's correct.
And so somebody else decides and sends to you what should be examined.
Yes.
Okay. And of those cartridge casings and metal chunks and bullets, you did not see blood and swabbed them for DNA and sent them on, right?
And what exhibits were we referring to?
Those casings and bullets that we pointed out on the chart, starting at 4, 3, 6, 7 down to the end?
Yes, those were all swabbed for possible DNA analysis.
Okay, and the other items were checked for blood and nothing was there, right?
There were some items that were also tested for saliva
Oh, right, right. The coffee mug, right?
and the Mountain Dew bottle, yes.
Yeah. And they didn't have that amylase, right?
They did not.
And so if there's no amylase, there is no saliva.
That's not true.
Oh, so on others, you said that they were positive for the presence of amylase, but here you have negative for the presence of saliva.
So-
Not always the same?
So negative for the presence of saliva does not mean that saliva isn't there or couldn't be there. It simply means that we were unable to detect it.
Ah, okay. Okay, and then I went out of order, but there was a time that you did a swab of a different pistol, right?
Yes.
And that was when you tested for those 2 cartridge casings that we pointed out on the north side of circle number 1 on the first chart, right?
If I recall, there were a lot we looked at, but
Okay, sorry. You swabbed that pistol about the same time that you were swabbing 2589 and 2590.
yes,
And again, that pistol, that was a Ruger, not a Glock, right?
that's correct.
And you don't know if that has anything to do with the case or not. You just swab it and let somebody else figure any relationship or not.
That is correct.
And you check that pistol also for signs of blood. June 15.
That is correct.
Okay. On May 16, 2023, you checked a hat, belt, and headphones.
Just trying to find that report here. I think they were in a little bit out of order, but
That should be the last one.
what was the date you said?
May 16, 2023, not 22.
I don't have that in the red file here, so. I can look in my own notes if you'd prefer, but
You can if it's easy enough, or I can show you what I have.
sure.
Okay. I'm going to show you. I'm sorry, the big stamp is not. Show you 2 pages that appear to be a report by you, but I can't read the numbers on the bottom, so you check it out and tell me what it is.
Yes, this is a report that I authored on May 16th, 2023. And the report ID would be L2020415-0030.
Okay, so are you familiar with the information on that report? I'm going to ask you about the results, but you may want to read through it first. Do you know them off the top of your head?
I can recall in a general sense, but if you ask anything too specific, I do have that in my file for.
Okay, why don't you pull it out so you can refer to it if you don't know the answers to my questions? Ready?
Yep.
Okay. So in that testing series, you had a hat, a belt, and a headphones in a paper bag that you tested, right?
That is correct.
And that hat was sort of a leather baseball-ish sort of hat?
I can check that. My notes aren't that or my report's not that specific, but
But your notes would be, right?
it was a black leather hat.
Okay. It was in with a belt and headphones. Does that cause a problem for DNA testing?
It does not.
Okay. So, because if there was transfer of DNA, it would be within those items in the same bag, right?
That is a possibility, yes.
Okay. And what was the result of you testing those three items?
Well, the hat that I had in that bag, the black leather hat, tested negative for the presence of blood.
Uh-huh.
I did not perform any chemical testing on the belt or the headphones.
Okay. But you looked at them.
Yes.
Okay. You didn't see any blood on them either, right?
It mostly was just that it wasn't requested for any other types of analyses, but I didn't see anything that I noted.
Okay. And then there were a pair of boots that you also checked, checked, right?
That's correct.
And those boots were in pretty bad condition, right?
I noted that the boots were severely worn, yes.
Okay. As a matter of fact, there were separations in the soles from the boot, cracked and actually could separate from the bottom of the boot. Do you recall that?
I don't recall the specifics, but my notes say that it was severely worn with heel and sole damage, so that would sound accurate.
Okay. And again, you don't just do the bottom, you are checking within the nooks and crannies and all the cracks, right?
I'm checking within my capabilities of view for blood in those locations, yes.
Okay, and these, even though it was May of 2023 that you did your report, these were boots that were collected in October of 2022, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. They're in evidence, so we don't have to go that far.
Okay.
But somebody who steps in blood might get blood on the soles of their shoes, right?
That would be, it would make sense, yes.
Okay. And if that blood was there on the soles of their shoes, using those shoes a lot might get rid of DNA evidence, right?
Over time, I would expect so, yes.
Okay, but might not, right?
True.
Because depending on how much and the circumstances of getting the blood there, if they were there, it might be in those little cracks and holes and threads and stuff like that of a boot, right?
Yes.
So, the absence of blood does not mean that there had never been blood on the boots, right?
That's correct.
But the absence also could mean that the person never had blood on their boots in the first place, right?
It only tells me that at the time of my analysis, I could not locate blood. Whether it was there at one point or not, I have no way of knowing.
Right. The absence of evidence doesn't prove something, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And here, there's an absence of blood that you can tell, right?
Correct.
And so it cannot prove that somebody had blood on their boot, right?
Or that they didn't.
And it cannot prove that there was never blood on those boots, right?
That's correct.
It cannot prove the presence at a scene or not, right?
That's correct.
And that goes for absence of evidence as well as presence of evidence, right?
That's correct.
And the jeans were also tested then, right? Or checked by you?
Yes.
And again, you did not just eyeballing it, you did a very close inspection because sometimes there can be dark staining on dark clothes and you can look closer to determine if those dark stains mean something, right?
Yes, this would be one of those items where I mentioned we have what's an IR light source that is capable of facilitating us with locating blood on dark objects. And I did look at it with that in this instance and did not note any stains.
So like the boots, you have no evidence whatsoever of blood on that article of clothing.
Say that again?
You have no evidence that there was ever blood on that article of clothing.
I do not.
Now, I did say that that was your last one, but I was wrong. You did another series of tests on July 13, 2023, also this year, right?
Yes.
And that was of two $50 bills.
That's correct.
And these two $50 bills, they came to you shortly before you did the report.
Likely.
Okay, I mean, it may have been days, but it wasn't sitting around the lab forever, right?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Okay. And you were also asked to perform a screening on those items for blood.
Correct. I was asked to examine those and try to locate blood.
And there were actually two stains on those things, which were the reason they were sent to you, and you found that those two stains were not blood.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I believe, hold on, Your Honor, if I may have a second.
Of course.
I'm going to show you a photograph from State's Exhibit 45. Show you these two photographs and ask you to look at the object that appears to be on a leaf.
In each of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that appear to be the metal object that you had checked for blood and DNA early on?
If not, it would be a very similar one. Hard to tell from just this, but
Okay.
it's the right description, yes.
Okay. I may? And this was one of the two metal objects that you sort of indicated as metal, but they were believed to be bullets, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And the other metal object that was believed to be a bullet was from the medical examiner's office? Do you remember that?
I recall, I believe one I was sent from the medical examiner
Oh, no,
office.
actually, I don't know that that was to you. The other one was the one that was, yeah, Okay, all right. Let me remind myself now. Did you examine 22/2146/PR?
Was that 2146? This was not one of the ones I examined.
Okay, I got that. All right. Thank you, Ron.
Any further? And Attorney Smith, were you done, or are you?
Yes,
no?
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
no, I didn't know for sure.
Just briefly, Judge.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, when you perform serology on an item, are you making any determination as to how a bodily fluid would have gotten on that item?
We are not. So when we perform any type of serological testing and we indicate whether blood or saliva or some other bodily fluid is present, we're merely stating that we have found it. As to how it got there, we can't add that opinion.
Now, you were asked about the report that was dated May 16th of 2023, so of this year, about a paper bag that contained a hat, a belt, headphones, boots, and jeans. If you need a minute to get that in front of you, that's okay.
I remember.
Okay. In that report, those particular items, what was your understanding about where those items had come from?
My understanding was that these were items that were collected from Mr. Clegg.
And your report and analysis was done in 2023. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were also asked about a report that was dated June 15th of 2022, so of last year, regarding cartridge casings and a Ruger. Is the Ruger exhibit number, is it 22-2946PR? Is that correct?
(22-2946) PR.
Okay, thank you. Now, when items are tested, say like the black leather hat, when they're examined, sometimes are markings left behind from testing?
So generally, once we have completed testing on an item, what we're going to do is we're going to provide some type of markings from the lab indicating what exhibit that is and that we have handled it. So you would see the case number that was assigned, the laboratory case number, the exhibit number from the submitting agency, as well as my initials indicating that I had performed testing on it.
Okay, and that's added after the item has been received by the laboratory.
That is correct.
Now, based on your training and experience, I know you talked a little bit about factors that can affect whether bodily fluids are left behind. How do things such as heat affect the ability of items of physical evidence to have DNA or bodily fluids left behind?
So for extreme heat, something that would be recovered from a fire, for instance, it could be problematic for DNA testing in that it actually would be likely to damage the DNA left behind.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any further cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. To that last question,
Sure.
I believe that when you were talking to me earlier, you indicated that it might affect the collection of DNA or saliva. But if DNA or saliva is collected, it would be the examiner to determine if it was contaminated or had the ability to be compared or identified.
The examiner can't tell you whether or not it was contaminated prior to the scene, no.
Prior to the scene, right. The sample that the examiner is looking at, the examiner can tell if there's contaminants there, right?
They would have controls to be able to indicate that.
Right, right. So if if you were able to obtain a DNA sample in your swabs, or if you were able to obtain a blood sample in your swab, it would be the examiner that would determine if it had, if the results were of evidentiary value or completely unreliable because of contamination.
The examiner, I'm not sure what you're asking.
You're not saying that exposure to elements makes whatever findings you have unreliable.
I am not. What I'm stating by saying evidence exposed to extreme heat is a condition which could cause damage to DNA. It would not make it such that I would then go report, or a DNA analyst would then go report a completely different profile or something of that nature.
Right, so it might affect your ability to collect DNA, but if DNA is collected, the examiner is the one that determines if there's contaminants that affect the reliability of the results.
Regardless of the heat factor,
Right.
a analyst would look at evidence to determine if there's any signs of contamination through our controls.
Thank you.
Any objection to excusing Mr. Kennedy altogether?
No, the state would ask to excuse him.
Yes.
Is okay with excusing Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Kennedy, you're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.